Oh, hi. Welcome to the Tingles Tea Shop. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no, come in. I know it's rainy out there. Yeah, come on inside. Oh, my name is Thomas, and I'm going to be taking care of you today. Mm-hmm. What brings you in? Okay. Well, you're in luck because our medical consultant, Jen, is here today. And let me go get her. You can have a little discussion with her, and she'll make a recommendation. And from there, you can choose the best tea for you. So let me go get Jen for you. Hold on one sec.
Hey there, welcome to our tea shop. I'm Jen. I'm the tea shop's medical consultant. I'm a physician and I do a little bit of sommelier work. You're going to be helped today by Thomas. Absolutely. So, did you have any questions or any ideas already coming in? Well, just between you and me, I do have some favorites. Everything's good, but I have my favorites. That's a good question. There is a lot of snake oil and a lot of information out there where people try to claim that this herb or that herb is going to cure cancer or save the world or whatever. We try to be more evidence-based here, and we actually do source teas that have real, health benefits to them. Yep. Well, let me turn you over to Thomas. He's going to be demonstrating a little bit of the cuppings. I'll do a little bit of the cuppings, and I think today I think you're going to have a lovely time. This fireplace is not going, but the one in the back is. It gets just so hot from that one. And it's such a blustery cold day out, so we wanted to have that. But and you can relax here, you can play chess. If you want, if you're with one of the other patrons, or if you just feel very introverted today and just want to be by yourself, that's fine too. It's a very comfortable, relaxing, quiet atmosphere. Oh, yeah. Well, this is Pistachio. She is an emotional support bird. She's quite well trained. And if you'd like, she can hang out with you. She wants kisses. You should be careful with kisses, though. But if you want, she can sit with you while you drink your tea. Would you like to hold her? There you go. Little one. Okay. Oh, she'd like to stay with me for a little bit. She really, really wants pets. So, that or she wants this. That makes good sense, doesn't it? No. What do you want? Yeah? What? 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 Would you like to hold her? Here you go. I'll have you hold her. And I'll turn you over to Thomas.
Oh, yes, welcome back, welcome back. So Jen has made 3 recommendations, and you can choose which one you'd like to try today. The first is a lavender tea blend, a white lavender. And Jen can show you the best way to make that tea. The second choice is a lemon balm tea that I'm going to create with you. And the third choice is peppermint ginger. And all of these are good choices for what's ailing you today. So if you look below at the time date stamp, go ahead and click on the one that you would like to try today. Remember that any choice that you make is going to be a good one today. So let's kick back, relax, and have a fun time at the Tingles Tea Shop.
The lavender white is one of my favorite teas, actually. The one that we have was a global 2017 championship bronze medalist. We source it through the Ethical Tea Partnership, from Tingles Tea through 3 Teas, through Metro Teas, and we can trace it all the way back to ethically sourced ancient fields in Fujian. Yes, white tea is, well, it's generally understood that most tea, and really the tea plant in general, was really discovered in China. That's generally agreed to be kind of the fact. In the United States, unlike other countries, often we call things that are not tea and are not from the tea plant, we call them tea. But actually, only things from the tea plant are tea. The other things like peppermint or lavender or other delicious herbs, those are technically infusions, and they can be brewed with tea, like in the case of our lavender white. So with the lavender white, we have a white tea, which means it was picked before it had fully greened, when all the leaves are still soft and white and fuzzy. And they were picked and not allowed to oxidize at all. If you pick it green and allow it to oxidize all the way and not ferment, it becomes black tea, which is obviously very popular in Europe. And although the world's premium black tea really comes from India and Sri Lanka. But there's some really amazing black teas from Kenya also. We source all of those. In the middle, if you haven't let it oxidize, you get oolong tea. If you let it ferment, you get pu'er tea. Or there are a few Korean versions, which are not pu'er tea, but they're Korean teas. And they have different names, but they're the same concept. I once, when I was in Korea, had this lovely volcanically fermented tea. They can be very expensive, those. I mean, you can get like $100 a box for some of those. So, all kinds of teas. No, he is not a pirate from Somalia. He is a tea sommelier. So, I've actually taken a couple of sommelier classes before I started my Tingles Tea Shop. From Canada, actually. There is a beautiful certification, worldwide recognized, that you can get in Canada. So, where they teach you tea pairings and so forth. But I'm not a sommelier. I am really the person whose job is to figure out which teas are the healthiest, look at sourcing, make sure they're good for you. Now, tea is not good for everybody. People who have quercetin allergies should not have tea, and people who have calcium oxalate kidney stones should not have tea. But for most people, tea, especially green tea, has amazing antioxidant powers. There's theanine in green tea, which lets you feel calm and relaxed, but also a little bit energized. And of course there's caffeine, and the caffeine level is at its strongest when the oxidation reaction has kind of allowed those chemicals and the rest of those chemical reactions to proceed. Yes, it's some kind of Le Chatelier principle stuff that I'm not all the way up on, but there's another kind of tea called a yellow tea, and it's young green tea that is picked, made wet but not allowed to ferment, and allowed to partially but not actually oxidize. It's a very precise and difficult procedure, so only emperors were allowed to have yellow tea back in the day. It was, so all kinds of teas. So white tea was second only to yellow tea, and is really kind of this treasured liquid gold. there's a lot of foods historically that have been restricted to either the very rich or royalty. So I mentioned how it's plucked. Oh, yes, but you want to know about the lavender because you want to know what is in it. So, and that's a good question. There are a lot of people out there, and this is where you get into the kind of the snake oil, where people will tout lavender as like, if you have lavender in your house, it will take away your anxiety. As someone with a mental illness myself, I always found that was very exploitative, when rather than looking at actual science, people want to try to tell people, don't go to your doctor, don't get on drugs, or don't go to therapy, it's all woo-woo. There's a lot of stigma because there are some terrible therapists out there, and there have been some terrible psychiatrists historically. I'm watching this 70s show right now called Columbo, and I love it, but it is funny how every time someone's family member has died in Columbo, the doctor immediately comes to give them like a very high shot of psychoactive medication to calm them down. And every time one of the men, or even the women, anytime someone has any kind of emotion, it's quite common in this show for people to be like, so this guy has just killed his wife, and he's like, I don't know what I've done, this is terrible, in that voice. And the other guy is like, now, don't be excited. He was totally calm in the way that he says it. And the other guy's like, no, calm down, don't get excited. And it's like, so with that kind of like, you're not allowed to have bad emotions thinking, there have definitely been some terrible psychiatrists, terrible doctors, people who just, if you're sad, here, have a drug, rather than actually dealing with it and being a human being and being allowed to be sad, because humans are allowed to be sad, right? So there is that, but I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And same thing on the other side. Just because there are liars who will try to sell you lavender and say it's going to save your life in every possible conceivable way, just because they exist doesn't mean, the evidence is always in the middle. Well, not always. That's actually not true. You all right in there? Oh, Thomas must have tripped. So anyway, in this case, lavender does have some good evidence for it, for calming down, for helping with sleep and anxiety. But you have to take it properly. So there was actually a randomized controlled trial in the Journal of Alternative Complementary Medicine in 2015, which is quite good. And what they did is they made sure to blind. They did investigator blinding, and they also did steps to blind the participants. So it was almost double-blinded, which is excellent. That's what you want. That's very important. They checked the efficacy of sleep hygiene versus lavender versus both together on college students who had trouble sleeping. So they took 79 college students with self-reported sleep issues. And over 5 nights, they had a baseline, a post-intervention, and a 2-week follow-up assessment. They put a 55 microliter patch of lavender essential oil on the people's skin so that they could actually absorb it through their skin, right? They're not just smelling it. Most things you can't just smell to get their benefit. It's actually on their skin in order to absorb. And they found that folks who had both lavender and sleep hygiene did better than the folks who had just the sleep hygiene or the folks who had just lavender. And they did make sure to placebo it, so they put fake patches on people also, which is awesome, right? So it wasn't just because people thought they were getting lavender that they felt better. It was actually because of the lavender. So the sleep hygiene only group also demonstrated better sleep quality, but to a lesser extent. So, and there was a clinical effect found for the lavender group post-intervention, along with significant finding for waking feeling refreshed. So in other words, people didn't report a difference in sleep quantity, but they reported a difference in sleep quality. It was easier to get to sleep, and their sleep felt better, which is great. Who doesn't want to have better sleep? So that was one study. There's another huge meta-analysis where they collected, several, like 1,000 people's data. 7,993 participants. A whole bunch of studies on lavender and anxiety. And they found a couple things. One, that aromatherapy had no evidence for it. And two, oral ingestion of lavender did have evidence for it. Right? I think this is the sign for eat. Hi there, it's good to see you. Sit down. Have a seat in our little tea shop. Grab it. So, yes. So, if ingested lavender does have good data for it. A lot of these studies on herbs are pretty poor quality, so it's a little hard to find good data, but this is the data we have. So the formulation that we have, the Tingles tea formulation, is a lavender white. So you would take this no more than 4 to 6 hours before bed, or no, not closer, right? Because some people, even the small amount of caffeine that's in white tea, right? The most caffeine is in black tea, but even the small amount that's in white tea, it can cause you to have trouble sleeping if you take it less than 4 to 6 hours before bed. For some people, other people who are not affected by it, they can take the lavender white tea, an hour before bedtime and just be conked out. The main thing is, if you have difficulty sleeping because of anxiety, this is something that you can take just as a calming, restful addition. And if you are allergic to tea, you could just get brewed lavender. So, just some nice brewed lavender. Black tea is very powerful for caffeine. It's good stuff. I really like black tea. But definitely not good if you have a quercetin allergy or calcium oxalate stones, which most people do not have. So, any questions about the lavender white? I would be glad to show you. So inspecting these dry leaves, you can see these beautiful large buds here, because this is a white tea. So it was picked. Look at this.
So it was picked before the buds had fully opened. And so you have just these long, beautiful, soft leaves. It's so rare. Absolutely gorgeous. And then mixed in here, you're going to have lavender. So this tea placed third place in the Global Championship in 2017. So this is a third bronze medalist out of the entire world. And of course, for our cupping, I'm going to go ahead and put the lavender in here. The lavender and white tea. This is our lavender and white tea cupping. Now, the amount that goes in is the amount usually that fits in this. Okay? So that's why I have to do so many of this tiny little one. And then, of course, before we put our lid on, we're going to pour our liquid in. I hope you like that sound. We'll put on our lid. Alright, then we're going to let it steep. Now, this time, our hot water is 185 degrees Fahrenheit. And our steeping time is going to be 1 to 2 minutes because we have a white tea. So you steep it a little bit less. It's a delicate tea and it can become bitter. So we'll let that steep. Next, we're going to go ahead and do our cupping. Alright, so we're going to do this. Turn it over. And let all the water fill up the bowl. And the bowl is, of course, specially made to handle the dimension of this. And then we go ahead and remove this. Then we're going to do two things. We're going to evaluate the wet leaves. I'm going to go ahead and scoop them out. sommelier tasting. It's actually similar to how you do with wine. We're going to go ahead and take a spoonful and sift it through the back of the mouth. We need that flavor to spray all across the mouth. Now this flavor tends to be more very floral, obviously, right, with the lavender. Now, of course, you're not supposed to be going back for more, but it's so good. And there's with this particular tea, there's a lightness and a sweetness to it, absolutely without sugar. But it's light, sweet, a little bit. There's that hint of astringency. The lavender doesn't overpower the white tea, which can be a very fragile flavor, right? White teas are so delicate. They're good with things like desserts, like mango and things like that, with fruits that aren't going to overpower them, but can still balance with their flavors. So, absolutely delicious white tea. You can understand why it won third place after tasting it. Let's take a look at the wet leaves. So these wet leaves are very full and wide. You can see their beautiful texture here. And of course there's all kinds of fancy sommelier terms that we can use to talk about them. It's important to the grade. You can look at the grade of the tea. You can see these are very high grade. They're not fannings or dust, basically. They're very, very wide, and they come out all the way. And they've got a beautiful luster to them. And you can see the little bits of jasmine in it. Sorry, not jasmine, lavender in it as well.
The peppermint ginger green. That is an excellent choice, too. So, actually, like with the lavender, it is a tea that also has herbs mixed into it, or essentially a tea with an infusion. The peppermint is so pretty. I'll show you in a moment. When we do the cupping, you can see the lovely little bits of ginger that are in there. It was actually in the top 10 tea lovers' choice at the 2016 Toronto Tea Festival. This particular blend that I have sourced for you. So, I like this one especially. So I enjoy ASMR. And as someone with a high fibromyalgia somatic symptom score, I tend to have a lot of nausea and pain. And I chose my supplier's unique blend of soothing peppermint and lively ginger green tea for both reasons. It's actually been used even for chemotherapy nausea, peppermint. That's how strong and effective it can be. There is a 2020 piece in the Clinical Journal of Oncology Nursing, literally about peppermint oil, evaluating its efficacy on nausea in patients receiving chemotherapy in the ambulatory setting. Nausea is one of the most commonly reported side effects for folks who have chemotherapy, and it can make the depression and just the experience of having the cancer so much worse. So what they did is they did a cool damp washcloth with peppermint versus a cool damp washcloth alone, and checked the self-reported intensity of nausea in patients receiving chemotherapy in the outpatient ambulatory settings. They had 79 patients, right? It's nice if we can see clinical numbers over 100 and so forth, but 79 is still pretty dang good. And they separated the patients into two groups. Unlike the lavender study, which I liked a lot, this study doesn't have as beautiful an impact, it doesn't have as lovely a design, because it's much harder to test if you're doing something inhaled. Now, peppermint does have an inhaled effect. Actually, when I used to work in pulmonology with my attending many years ago in medical school, he was very emphatic about his COPD patients not using peppermint because it activates certain inflammatory pathways, and people were putting it on their chest and inhaling it so much, and he said he believed that it made their COPD worse for them. The reason they were doing that is because they felt congested, and peppermint immediately relieves that sense of congestion. But they were doing it so much, and in somebody who has COPD because of smoking, apparently there's already some other inflammatory pathways that go on. So I didn't know that. But for things like head colds or stuff like that, Vicks Vapor Rub and other menthol-related things have been used forever to help clear sinuses, right? But you can't, it's been used for a really long time, but you can't do a very good randomized controlled clinical trial, because if you're inhaling it, you can smell it. There isn't really a fake peppermint smell that you can inhale and not know that it's not peppermint. I mean, there probably is, but it would just be exceptionally difficult to, it would just be very difficult. So, we do have a very good jasmine tea. I'm really glad you liked it when you tried it. So. Yes, I'm always happy to see rounded koala. One of my favorites. Absolutely. So, in this trial, folks had improved nausea. In other words, their nausea went down when they had the peppermint versus when they had the washcloth alone. They actually used the Baxter Retching Faces Pictorial Scale, because medical professionals, we like to measure everything. So on this nursing scale, they actually have measured and enumerated and calculated if things made a difference, because it's very important for studies to be able to actually quantify things like that. So, but I mean, peppermint's even in Tiger Balm for pain relief. A slightly better series of information. The Drugs and Lactation database talks about it being used to soothe nipple sensitivity, actually, because it helps with pain like that. That's put out by the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development. I know they have updates as late as 2022, but I think it was originally started in 2006. So, peppermint, menthol, it's been used for, it's been about as effective as lanolin, more effective than placebo and expressed breast milk in soothing nipple sensitivity, actually. It was more effective than lanolin in some, but not all, studies. A meta-analysis concluded that application of nothing or breast milk may be superior to lanolin, but good studies are lacking. Some mothers in Turkey reportedly use mint to increase their milk supply and improve the taste and quantity or quality of their milk. So peppermint's been used for all kinds of things, and it's generally recognized as safe as a food by the Food and Drug Administration. So if you're having some nausea, if it's so severe that I need to give you Zofran or ondansetron, obviously not in a tea shop, that's one thing. But for those who aren't at that level, or you don't have anything like that at home, or you're having nausea all the time, like I do often with my fibromyalgia, and I can't just be popping pills all the time, peppermint is just wonderful. Just if you... Yes, we're not going to put peppermint tea on our nipples, no. But if peppermint, the point being that it's helpful for pain. And if it is used on nipples, it should be used after nursing and wiped off before the next nursing, because the baby doesn't need it. But the point of that whole conversation about nipple sensitivity is that peppermint is very helpful for pain. To the point that even on some incredibly sensitive parts, it can be very helpful for pain. It's also been used to kind of calm upset bellies in pregnancy. When I was working on the OB wards in residency, I would use that regularly for my patients, along with B6 and ginger. And so this tea, this peppermint ginger green, also has ginger in it, which is, constantly used to reduce nausea and vomiting in pregnancy. If you would like a source on that, you can check out. There's a review in Canadian Family Physician Journal in 2016 talking about ginger for nausea and vomiting in pregnancy. And they kind of look at, in the first trimester, especially for what's called morning sickness, it can, might improve nausea and vomiting by about 4 points on a 40-point scale, or stop vomiting for 1 to 3 women at 6 days. You have to have it pretty consistently. However, I've actually found it in high doses, ginger, because the Dramamine company, right, that they make they're the guys that make a seasickness pill. They also make a ginger seasickness pill, and I found it to be incredibly effective. So folks will take that. I had a family member who, when we were traveling, would often get nauseous or seasick, and so we were popping ginger all the time. So I'm never going to make the claim that, I'm never going to make the claim that I want to be careful what kind of medical claims we're making when it comes to things like tea. But I will say that tea is one of the factors that helped to save my life just by giving me a moment of rest because of some of the properties of green tea and because of the actual ritual that goes around tea. During a period of time, it was very stressful for me a couple years ago when I was in the military. So for me, tea can almost literally be a lifesaver. But when we're actually talking about the actual medical qualities, we can definitely say specifically what the studies say. So that's the peppermint ginger green. The other thing is, for folks who like ASMR, both peppermint and ginger are known to have a kind of tingly effect on the skin and on the tongue. And so I like to combine that tea with ASMR, and they're kind of the perfect compound for preparation to kind of increase or augment your tingles. I'd actually love to see a study done on that within the ASMR community. So if you ever wanted to be part of a study where you get tea and ASMR at the same time and try to get tingles, that would be fun. So our tea, this particular green tea and the herbs with it are sourced from all over. We've got Japanese green tea, the peppermint and the ginger are sourced from Kenya, Japan, Thailand. There's luxury green tea, natural dried ginger, dried calendula, and sunflower petals, and peppermint. And so a bunch of pieces from all over the world. So the caffeine level is fairly low, but again, unless you know exactly how tea affects you, probably wait. Don't take it after, 6 hours before bed. But a nice afternoon tea to kind of help you feel a little stimulated. Whereas I like the lavender white a lot for the evening, I think the ginger green is a good morning tea, kind of mid-morning. And then, your early morning, like, oh, I have to get up. That's when I like a black tea, like an Earl Grey. That would be my ideal tea day. Would probably be something like that, although I might have a jasmine for kind of a romantic afternoon tryst. And I'd be glad to do a cupping of that for you.
of course, the flavor of the peppermint ginger green is going to be very sharp, right? Yeah. It's going to be sharp. It's going to have really spicy notes from the ginger. And then from our wonderful, wonderful peppermint, it's going to have that refreshing, wake you up kind of lightness. It's got a slight astringency from the tea plant itself, of course. It's really a wonderful, wonderful, light and refreshing tea. So, I mean, you can understand why it placed in the top 10 of teas at the Toronto Tea Festival. And I think it was 2016. Yeah. And it's, of course, when you're drinking out of something beautiful, it makes the whole experience even more beautiful. So, we'll do our cupping of the peppermint ginger green. We start by putting our tea leaves, our dry tea leaves, after we've inspected our dry tea leaves. We go ahead and put them in there. And we add our water. And as you saw when I showed you the dry tea leaves before, when I was pouring your drink, they have large, beautiful pieces of ginger in them. And nice, long leaves with stems and everything intact. So, now we're going to let this seep and sit for a little bit. We keep a lid on. When I do cuppings with, remember how you cup for a second? Sometimes I do cuppings using these two, but what I do then is I will cover it with a plate or something like that. It has to stay covered so that the taste and the aromas don't disappear while we're working on them. So this is more convenient for me to do cuppings because this requires a funny little amount of technical ability you're going to see in just a second. So the amount I put in here is actually, it's going to be 3 teaspoons of these tiny little ones. It's it's supposed to be a larger amount like that. It's actually exactly the amount that fits into this, which is why it's easiest for me to use this. But I'll give that back to you. I know you were still drinking, but so for a green tea, do you know how long we let it seep? Or steep, sorry. No, you're close, keep guessing. Almost. No, try again. I'm letting you guess because we're gonna have to wait here for a couple of minutes. So that's why it's totally reasonable to wait. So now that we have steeped our green tea for 2 minutes, it's between 1 to 3 minutes at 185 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to go ahead and do our tasting. So we're going to take this bowl. Isn't it beautiful? And like I said, these are handmade by Brian Vanelli, and you can get stuff like this. So now we take this like this and just dip it, and of course the teeth are going to keep all our leaves in. Just like that. And then we flip it back. Now here what we're doing is we're going to evaluate there's a special way that we're supposed to taste it. And you'll see it's really funny. It's like wine sommelier style. So we take the little teaspoon and then and the idea is to suck it up so that it sprays into the back of the mouth. And that's how we do that. So we evaluate the liquid, we sense the aroma, and we do like I showed you. Just like with wine, actually. Isn't that funny? So, the next thing that we're going to do, I'm actually going to set this to the side here, is then we're going to evaluate the wet leaves. We always evaluate the appearance of the wet leaves. So that's going to be turning this over. And it's not supposed to have any liquid left in it. I'm supposed to get all the wet leaves here, but I was not fortunate enough to do that. So just scoop them out. And then we'll take a look at them.
Thanks for coming to the Tingles Tea Shop today. It has been a wonderful experience and a pleasure serving you. And on behalf of myself and Jen, I wanted to thank you for your participation and coming in to see us today. If you want to try any of these teas, there's a link below that will take you to a shopping cart to choose the tea of your choice. And you can always hit the subscribe button and the like button to come back here and participate by choosing a different tea. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Taking care of yourself and those you love is incredibly important. Thank you so much, and I look forward to serving you again in the Tingles Tea House. Thank you so much.